Cara and welcome to Writing in the Margins. Today's episode is another chat with our second guest, Rebecca Stiles. Rebecca used to be my teacher in a couple of creative writing classes I took. I found her teaching super inspiring and I wanted to chat to her about how she manages time when it comes to working a 9 to 5, writing for herself, and also occasionally teaching writing classes. Rebecca is a writer by day and a writer also by day because, like me, she prefers to write in the morning before work. In our chat, we talk about that as well as the writer guild and how to get published in New Zealand. I hope you enjoy. Let's get started. Hi, good morning. How's it going? It's really nice to see you.
You too, yeah.
Would you like to introduce yourself with whatever you want and maybe like touch a little bit on, what your average day looks like and what kind of writing, those kind of things?
Okay. Well, I'm Rebecca Stiles. I live in Wellington. I work during the day. My day job is writing at Consumer New Zealand. So I write articles about insurance and financial advisors and all that, a lot of different kind of stuff. But in the morning I do get up about 6 o'clock. Well, I try to get up at 6 o'clock. It's usually a little bit after, and sort of do my own writing for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Also, before heading off to work. I found that's the easiest thing, like to get it out of the way first, so then you're not guilt-ridden for the rest of the day, or when you come home from work thinking, oh, I really should go and do some writing, but I can't be asked because I'm busy from the day, blah, blah, blah. And it'll be cold up there, blah, blah. Yeah, all the excuses that run through your head to stop you getting to the desk. Yes, I do my work and then come home and, dog walking and, life admin and exercise and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty quiet, really. I could do more, when I look at my, teenagers, stepdaughters moved out, pretty low key life, really. And yeah, so that's another layer of guilt. You should really be doing some writing instead of, listening to that podcast or reading that book or blah, 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 or staring at Instagram for far too long.
Yeah, that familiar feeling. So you not only you have a 9 to 5, but your 9 to 5 is also writing, which is also my reality in the last year. I also went from being very part-time to being full-time and being a writer for a job.
Wow.
And it was a big adjustment, but I think I could not predict how hard it would be to write for myself along with, like, together with also writing as a job. Although, like, I'm a technical writer, so similar to you, it's not creative. It's just very like, here's plain language and here's the style guide. But I just could not do it. Like, I was exhausted for the first 4 months, and then only now, after like over a year, I'm finally like, I want to write for myself again.
Wow.
So I'm just curious to know, I mean, is it easy for you to put in compartments and say like, okay, this is me writing for myself, and then I go to work, and like, do you still have the energy? Do you still, like, does your brain work like that? Like, can you actually, like, is it easy for you to write for yourself on top of writing
I think
for a job?
Because they're quite different styles, that I find it reasonably easy to compartmentalize them in some ways. I think they probably do feed off each other in terms of, the discipline of, they need an article needs to be written, so you write it.
Yeah.
So I think that's that discipline and just the clarity of language. I think those skills do transfer over to my creative. And maybe the creative doesn't go so much the other way, because it can be quite, journalism can be quite formulaic. Of course, you have your own voice and things like that, but I guess when you're a voice for an organization, it's kind of tempered a little bit. But I think, and because I've been doing the creative stuff for so long before I got a proper writing job, I do see them as very separate and different parts of myself, I guess. But I do think, those skills of clarity and just getting stuff done and sitting down and getting it and being able to turn it around quite quickly, I think those skills could go through to the creative.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I'm doing very little creative writing at the moment as well. So I feel like what I write outside of work, it's very different topics, but they kind of a little bit, like they overlap a little bit. So that's also why I think I'm finding it tricky. But I understand, like, yes, if it's very different styles, very different audiences as well, that's probably a bit easy
Yeah.
to separate for sure. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about what kind of writing you do for yourself? Because you said you do creative.
Um, yeah, sure. So I started with my creative writing with short stories, and that's probably still my preferred form. That's sort of the stuff that gets published. So short stories and flash fiction I quite like as well.
Yeah, that's
But
fine.
in saying that, I've got like 2 novels in the cupboard. So I'm sort of in the process of rewriting one, the one I did for my PhD, the historical one. But then I've got another sort of contemporary one in the drawer as well.
Yeah.
So I was thinking as you sent through this thing in terms of finding time for writing, it feels like I've actually got quite a bit of writing there, but it's that final step of getting it out into the world with novels is harder at the moment because of the way publishing is, and maybe they're just not good enough. And it's sort of at that stage where I think, oh, I need to find a different way of getting it out there, whether I go down self-publishing or all this kind of stuff. But that feels to me a different skill set in terms of, scouting, this look at me, look at what I've done. And how do you find an audience from that? Feels really hard. And I guess I get to that step and I think, oh God, I'm not very good at that. I would need someone to do it for me, really.
Yeah.
So I've got stuff there, but I guess short fiction is easier in that it doesn't take so long and there's more outlets to get it out there. So that sort of feels more easier and more attainable. Where of course a novel, it's just years of your life.
Yeah,
God.
absolutely. I relate to this very much. I also have 2 novels in a cupboard. I've been there for like 8 years. But yeah,
God.
absolutely. And I do agree that like once you've done it, that's one set of skills there. And then like getting is a completely different thing that I also agree someone else should do it for you because I am a writer. I'm not like a marketing person. I don't.
Well, that's right. It's all about connection and
Yeah.
smoozing, and those aren't my strong points
Yeah.
at all.
But that's amazing. Like 2 novels coming out. That's pretty good. Yeah.
They ever see the light of day.
Yeah, one day, one day. But yeah,
One day.
I also really enjoy short stories because it's nice to see the final product within like sometimes a week or two rather than 8 years. So yes, absolutely. Instant gratification is always good.
Well, yeah, and that there's more outlets for sort of casual publication, I guess, as well. Whereas novels, it's there's hardly, the publishing in New Zealand is a bit bleak. A lot of things are bleak in New Zealand at the moment, but there's not many outlets, especially not for new or up and coming or new voices. So it's really, really tough. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Another thing that I was going to mention is that you also teach creative writing, and that's how we know each other.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned, but yes, like you were my teacher for a couple of creative writing classes that I took in my life. So yeah, how does that like how do you include that into your life and into your writing practice? How often do you do it? Does it help yourself writing as well, like teaching it?
Well, I gave it up.
Oh, okay.
I'd done it for about 10 years and I decided that was enough. Someone else could
good effort.
Go in and do it. And I started it when I was a PhD student. And it was good in terms of, like, I didn't ever see myself as teaching. So it was good in terms of challenging myself to see whether I could. And I think once you've spent so much money on your education, there is sort of an obligation to share whatever it is, with other people. So it was quite satisfying. I think mainly I did one night a week. I think there was a stage there where I did 2 nights a week, which was kind of crazy. But in terms of, I think it was both kind of inspiring to see other people's work and that workshopping thing as well. But at the same time, it cut down on my own time to do my own stuff. So it's always, I guess with writing, it's always a bit of give and take with that. And maybe with PhD, when I was studying, it was, I had that time for writing. So it wasn't such a big deal. But then when I finished it and was working, it sort of carved into a lot more of my own time. Just the preparation and the looking at people's work and the actual class itself. So it could be like 3 nights a week out, just sort of doing that. But I did enjoy it, and I would do it again. Yeah, and it was very part-time. So whether I could do that full-time and still do my own writing would be another thing. But no, I did enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it was a time suck.
Oh, fair. Yeah, yeah. I can imagine because obviously, like, what students will say it was only like what a couple of hours a week, but
Yeah.
obviously there must be so much work going on in the
Yeah,
background.
just a bit of just
Preparation.
the
Yeah,
admin of it and
yeah,
dealing
for
with the
sure.
office and yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, like, yeah, good for you for recognizing that.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but there's definitely a lot of compromising with writing. I'm actually in the process of writing a little article about that. Yeah, it's tricky. Like you love doing it, but there's also, I mean, I personally have lots of other things that I also like doing. So I think I'm basically trying to figure out how I can reframe this entire thing to still be
mm,
happy with the amount of writing I do and the kind of writing I
mm,
do, without neglecting other things. But that kind of goes back to something that you mentioned earlier about about guilt and about doing other things. You were like, oh, I shouldn't be reading this book. I should be writing.
um,
It's funny because I also think a lot of the other things we do are also very conducive to writing. And often I personally find I get very good ideas when I'm not sitting at a screen, and especially when I'm reading, actually, especially
mm,
for creative writing. Um,
mm.
so I don't know. I feel like there's definitely, I mean, procrastination is definitely a thing, and guilt is
Yeah,
definitely
I guess
a thing.
it's knowing
But
the
I don't
difference when
think,
it's stuff
yeah,
for life. Obviously, yeah, it's life that can inspire the work.
yeah,
And reading,
but
of course, is incredibly important. But I guess it's knowing the difference of that life stuff or you're just
yeah.
procrastinating. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
I also, yeah, so I think, yeah, fair enough. Like there's definitely like doing other things to avoid actually sitting down and writing. Um but I was also curious to know about when you said like that you wake up before work, like you write before work to get it out of the way. I
Mm.
thought that was an interesting way of putting it because it made me think a little bit about like going to the gym, like when you're just like, oh, I don't want to do this, but I'll just get it done so I don't have to think about it later.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't want this to come out the wrong way, but it kind of made me think about like writing feels more something you should do rather than something you want to do. Is that like
Mm.
the place you're coming from, or like is it? I'm just asking this because I think it's because right now, personally, I'm going through a phase where I finally want to write, and it's been very
Mm.
long. So I'm actually excited. I also get up early before work,
Mm.
and but I am excited to like do it. I'm also a morning person, so that obviously helps.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
I get up and I'm like, yeah, I get to write for a couple of hours before going to work, um, as opposed to, oh, I'm just gonna do it now because then I don't have to worry about it. Although I
Mm.
also understand um it's way harder for me to also sit down after work and write. So it's kind of both things. But I'm just
Mm.
again, like I don't mean this in a accusing slash
No, no, I
way.
completely,
I'm just
I
curious
understand.
about, yeah.
I think, well, maybe I should have perhaps framed it as doing the most important thing first.
Yeah.
But in the same way, like I've spent a lot of time and money on trying to be a writer. And I guess it, there is an element of like, oh, I can't give it up now. I've put so much into it. So there is an element of should coming into it.
Hmm.
But obviously, if I could only work part time and do writing, then I would. And I did over the summer, I took an extended leave and did more writing,
Yeah.
um, which was really good. But it also emphasized that I can just do it in a couple of hours a day, the writing. Like you can't sit down and do that creative stuff. Well, I can't for 8 hours a day because I thought I could, but I couldn't. So same sort of thing, get up and do it in the morning for a few hours and then maybe go back and do another hour in the afternoon. But it was lovely to have that time, but it also, yeah, emphasized that I can just do it in snippets of time.
Yeah.
So it was quite productive in that way. But yeah, I mean, if I could, just work 20 hours a week and then dedicate another 20 hours for writing, I would definitely.
Yeah.
But I guess that, you get to a certain level as well, and you feel like you should have had been more productive, more things out into the world than you have. So it's sort of probably midlife crisis stuff that you put so much time and energy into something and you're still not getting through, because like the writing's there, but it's just that final thing of getting like a collection published or a novel published or something like that. That's sort of the thing that I'm always bumping up against, and it does feel like, this, at what point is it madness doing the same thing over and over and not getting, and just getting the same result? So it's like something has to shift, but I don't know what that thing is really. And to self-publish, you'd need a lot of money. If it was going to hire a PR and get it published and stuff, you're looking, what, 10, 15 grand probably. I don't know. I don't have that sort of stuff lying around, that kind of money lying around. So,
Amazing.
yeah, it feels, so I do it because I enjoy it and it's my way of expressing myself and that kind of thing. But yeah, there's that thing of you should be more productive than you are. You should have had more out. It's those sorts of external factors that come into it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. Like, I understand this as well. Like, I mostly write. I mean, I'm also write because I love it. It's mostly for myself. It's mostly a way of processing and just like expressing myself. But yeah, there's definitely that level of, I mean, for me, I think there's it's a variety of things, but I definitely understand like, oh, I should do more of this, even though there's anyone reading it sometimes. Like, I actually don't really know who reads my things, and some things don't go on it. Some things just stay on my laptop, so obviously no one reads them. But even there, like, even if I don't have an audience, I do have this thing of like, I should have written 20 pages instead of 15. And like, even though it's literally just me reading them. Yeah. But then also there's definitely that blurred line between writing because it's your passion and writing because you want it to be published. Yeah, and like, I mean, obviously, like, you're way ahead of me in this way, like, because you are published, right? You have like
short stories.
Yeah. So I did write a book a couple of years ago and I just put it online. But mostly because because also I don't know how to market myself, but but also because I mostly wrote it because I wanted to do it, and then I was like, well, I've done it, now it's out. And but yeah, there's also like that thing of like, oh, how do I reach more people? How do I get published? How do I, like, what's the best way to do this? And so I think, I wonder if once you are at that stage, you have more of this like pressure, I guess, of doing more because you have readers. I don't know.
Maybe so. Yeah, I guess the pressure for me is it's internal, I guess, because I guess just followed my love of writing and done all these courses, and I've got a horrendous student loan and all that kind of stuff. I guess it feels like you should have had some payback, but that's very sort of a capitalistic way of thinking about creativity, I guess. That whole thing comes in as well. There should have been, and because I like to think myself as quite hardworking, so you feel like you should have got some payoff, but of course there's no guarantees with any of this stuff at all. So
that's a hard one for sure, because there's always, absolutely, like, we could talk for hours about capitalism. But
like that.
But that's the whole thing of like wanting to have like an actual financial reward for all your hard work you put into something, and then the fact that artists are not paid enough and blah blah blah.
Well, this is it. And even if I did get something published, it would probably 2,000 print run. God, it would make me nothing. It would be vanity more than anything.
It's a hard word out there for us, right? Yeah, for sure. Well, amazing though. Like, it sounds like, I mean, I'm just mostly impressed that you write for a job and then you also write for yourself, because I've discovered how hard that is. I'm always like impressed by people who do it. I think it shows like just a big passion for writing and just wanting to do it no matter what.
Sure, I think there's a lot of writers, I think, that like in comms teams and just using those. It's all about the transferable skills, using your writing for other jobs and stuff. And because a bit of a component of my job is also the research as well, so it sort of feels more like doing a university essay in some ways.
Yeah, for sure.
I always used to quite like doing the research and stuff as well. So in that way it's sort of perfect. But yeah, it's And I guess, I mean, more people will read my work stuff, but that's for sure. More so than my own stuff. I mean, and it's just the reality of what information people want
Yeah,
and
same,
where
same.
nonfiction sits. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it makes me sad. I'm like, I have so many more people reading about student loans and study link stuff than
That's very important stuff.
if it's helpful, great.
Yeah. On
Yeah,
the way, what music is on the hold line these days.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, cool. Well, I mean, that's pretty much all the questions I have. I think it was like a really inspiring conversation. I always I'm so curious to know like how other people do it, and yeah,
Yeah,
get very inspired to see that it's possible
mm,
no matter
yeah,
what.
yeah. The only other things, when I was looking through those questions, I do book reviews as
Oh,
well.
amazing.
Mainly for Takahe and just an occasional few for the listener. So I think that's quite good in honing that. I guess it's that again that writing discipline, well, reading and that writing discipline and what was I going to say? The keeping that critique muscle keep working as well, which is really
Yeah.
helpful. And I am like a pre-reader for Takahe magazine for short stories, which is quite interesting to see what other people are writing, and you get a sense of what gets through to the next step and what doesn't.
Yeah.
I think there's stories that are submitted that are, they've got lots of promise, but just haven't quite got the polish there. But there's heaps of potential. But yeah, there is a lot of people writing. That's quite amazing.
Yeah, that's actually, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I think I do think reading other people's stories is the best exercise because yeah, even like when I took your creative class, so like I did like also creative writing, a short story workshop at Vic. That was so inspiring because I was the first, like for me that was it was a very new thing for me to actually workshop other people's stories, and it really gives you a different perspective on your own writing because you can see like you're pushed to understand why a story doesn't quite work, or like what is missing or what works really well. And yeah, it's such a good way to just look at your own writing with like more tools for sure.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
much so. And it's also good for building a community of like-minded people and drawing on those people when your energy is low to go to them and, sort of get the buzz back really, because
Yeah.
it's hard
Yeah.
it's a very solitary thing and it's hard to maintain that energy by yourself. So
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
it does certainly help build that community.
Yeah, the community aspect is very, very important for sure. I have a couple of like writing groups going on, and it's just like
Mm.
both for accountability and just for support and just knowing
Yeah.
that you're not waking up at 5 a.m. by yourself. Well, thank you so
Oh,
much
it's
for
lovely to see you.
yeah, lovely to see you. All the best with all your writing and everything else.
You too. Yeah, well, and life in general.
All right, well, enjoy the weekend. Thank you so much for your time again.
No, my pleasure. Catch you later.